Before we get into the video, we'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate the winners of the Footy A to Z Patreon, Tipping and Supercoach leagues. Well done to Patrick, who claimed the Tipping League ahead of Nick and Nathan, while Pete was the highest ranked patron in the Supercoach League. Keep an eye on your emails as we'll be in contact to organise your prizes. Patrons had access to the All-Australian forward line 2 days early, and we'll include a link to the Patreon page in the description if you'd like to support the channel and gain early access on select content. Now, onto the video. We're back with the second rendition of our All-Australian team by the stats. As a reminder, this video is not our attempt to pick the All-Australian team, but rather an experiment to see what results a purely statistical approach can achieve, while also seeking to select a team that reflects the way modern AFL sides are named week to week. While the fundamental system remains the same as last year, we've made a couple of slight changes. We started by breaking up the field into a variety of subcategories. Next, we picked the stats for each positional category we felt best represented the attributes of that position. For simplicity, these were limited to what was available on the Stats Pro feature of afl.com.au, link in description. The rankings of all players eligible for that position were obtained and converted to points. First place in a stat would give you 1 point, so just like golf, its lowest score wins. After noting the amount of players last year who perhaps unfairly had their chances ruined by one bad statistic, we expanded the number of stats from 4 to 5. Eligible players were scored on their rank in each of their best 4 categories, with their worst score excluded. Whoever scored the lowest in their best 4 stats would be selected in the team. For example, if a player scores first in 4 categories but 40th in their 5th, they'll still score 4 points. This allowed for more flexibility in selecting the stats, and also reflects that players with slightly different skill sets can excel in the same position. In the event of players tying on points, a countback was used, where the player with the highest finishing positions would win. If you're not quite sure what we mean, that's okay. All will become clear as the video goes on. And so, as is now officially tradition, we'll start with the forward line. This year, as the game opened up, we reduced the emphasis on pressure in the forward line and focused more on scoring, selecting a small attacking forward, 2 key forwards, a half-forward flank, and a utility forward. Similar to last year, the 6th forward spot would go to an attacking midfielder. The first forward pocket would go to a traditional small forward, who fulfills the role of mopping up ground balls, chasing down defenders, and of course, hitting the score sheet. Our 5 stats for that position were goals, forward 50 ground ball gets, tackles inside 50, score involvements, and marks on lead. Tom Papley scored 4, 1, 17, 2, and 4. His highest score was then erased to give him a total of 11, topping Charlie Cameron to take the first spot in the team. For the next position, we wanted a traditional half-forward flank, capable of linking play up the field and doing damage inside 50. For the stats of goals, marks, inside 50s, score involvements and pressure acts, Papley again came out on top, in a close battle with Cripps, Green, Heaney and Stringer. This brought about a dilemma we hadn't anticipated: what to do if players win multiple categories. In the end, we decided to pick the player in the position where they had scored best, and so Papley remained in the pocket with his early score of 11, leaving the half-forward position open for an incredibly consistently scoring Jamie Cripps. For the key forwards, we were simply unable to decide on a 5th statistic out of those available that we felt really mattered. So after achieving good results with just 4 last year, we made an exception and retained goals, contested marks, marks inside 50, and score involvements. This gave us Hawkins and Mackay tied on 18 points as our 2 key forwards. We then wanted our last forward to reflect the rise of versatile players who aren't quite tall or small, players who can gather loose balls and take contested marks. The stats here were goals, marks on lead, contested marks, score involvements, and forward 50 ground ball gets. Here Toby Green achieved the lowest score of the forwards, claiming the other spot in the pocket. Although, Papley was able to claim second position, reflecting his truly dominant 2021 season. To find the 6th position, we pushed on to the midfield. For the ruckman, we kept all of weighted hitouts to advantage, contested marks, clearances and score involvements from last year, and added 1 percenters. Max Gawn once again proved his dominance, scoring 8 points. Just 1 behind him was Darcy, who enjoyed a breakout season, and Nadanui was just 2 behind him on 11. Our rover and ruck rover would be 2 traditional midfielders, with an all-round ball-winning ability. For the stats of effective disposals, contested possessions, clearances, score involvements and goals, Clayton Oliver proved he's become more than just a good contested player to score 13 points, while teammate Petrarca joined him ahead of McRae and Parrish. For the centre, we again anchored the midfield with a strong contested player. For the stats of effective disposals, contested possessions, total clearances, pressure acts and tackles, Oliver tied with Steele for top spot, but won again on countback. However, his better score of 13 in the rover position meant that that's where he remained, and Steele was still selected as the centre. Finally, we created a new attacking midfield category for a mid-forward, and the player who topped metres gained, inside 50s, clearances, score involvements, and goals would fill the vacant spot at half-forward. Christian Petrarca became our 3rd multiple winner, with an impressively low score that moved him to a new spot, while back in the middle, McRae snuck into the side alongside Oliver as the 3rd best rover. With wings an important part of modern teams, we wanted these 2 spots to go to players who spend most of their time in that position. After largely failing in that regard last year, we updated our stats to include metrics that are both important for wings and highlight aspects unique to their position. Looking for players who both link the play and find the ball in space, we selected effective kicks, bounces, inside 50s, metres gained, and marks. This time the results were more successful, with Paul Seedsman rewarded for a fantastic year on the wing, and Isaac Smith claiming 2nd spot. For this year's defence, we picked 2 key position players, a back pocket, 2 rebounding half-backs, and a utility player. The back pocket has a range of defensive and attacking responsibilities, often having to lock down a small forward's threats and start attacking chains. With the stats of contested possessions, ground ball gets, defensive half pressure acts, intercept possessions, and lowest defensive contest loss percentage, Jack Crisp stood head and shoulders above the field, scoring just 6 points. In a slight tweak to last season, we updated some stats and we're looking for just 2 key defenders, whose primary responsibility is stopping their opponents, but who can also get across to rescue their teammates. The stats were contested marks, lowest defensive win-loss percentage, 1 percenters, intercept possessions, and spoils. The star of last year's backline, Liam Jones, narrowly missed out, and it was Harris Andrews who scored a complete set of 2s to secure the post alongside Jacob Wiedering. More so than ever, the halfback flank plays an integral role in how teams move the ball. As they transition, defence must become attack, so for the categories of score launches, effective disposals, rebound 50s, metres gained, and intercept possessions, we selected the best 2 players. Daniel Rich's outstanding year saw him claim first with 10 points, while Lloyd edged out Roos captain Jack Siebel on a countback to claim 2nd spot. To mirror the forward line, we decided the final back pocket should go to a not quite tall, not quite small all-round defender. These stats were effective possessions, intercept possessions, defence 1-on-1 loss percentage, spoils, and contested marks. Bomber Jordan Ridley was able to hold off another strong performance from Crisp, while Stewart was in 3rd spot. After a somewhat arbitrary approach to the bench last year, we decided to pick the most impressive player from each section of the field, 1 each for ruck, mid, forward and defence. These were the players with the lowest scores that didn't manage to make it onto the field. The players selected were Sean Darcy with 9 in the ruck, Charlie Cameron with a small forward score of 13, Jack Ziebel on 16 as a rebounding defender, and Marcus Bontempelli with 11 in the attacking midfielder category. The only thing left was to award the leadership. This was perhaps the most controversial part of the team last year, but again we stuck to the system, awarding the captaincy and vice-captaincy to the two most statistically outstanding players, as indicated by the lowest scores. And so, Jack Crisp's 6 means he will lead the side, with the assistance of Toby Green's measly 7. As per last year, the results were a mix. We found that the system punishes players such as Stringer and Tom Stewart, who are difficult to pigeonhole into a single clear position, and thus end up with seemingly mid-range stats. In addition, the statistical impact of defenders again proved difficult to define, especially in what's available on the AFL Stats Pro. And it was interesting to see that our side's defence had just one player in common with the AFL's team. Jamie Cripps was a notable surprise as well in the forward line, and it's worth mentioning his 5th stat that wasn't counted was goals. So while the 5-stat system yielded better overall results, further tweaking may be in order for next year. On the other hand, a positive was the balance of top 8 players with those that missed finals, with 14 of the 22 featuring in finals this year and 9 of them in a top 4 side. This was able to reflect the dominance of players in successful teams, while also allowing 8 players who had outstanding years in lesser teams to gain recognition. And for those who are wondering, 9 players were selected for their second All-Australian by the Stats Blazer, and 11 were selected in the AFL's official team. So what do you think of the side? Who were you happy to see included, and who were you surprised missed out? Let us know in the comments, and as always, subscribe to Footy A to Z for more AFL content as the season wraps up.